So I'm just going to add quickly, edit a match here, that ignore most of the things I say. This is a local lockdown. This is not just guidance, because people within the area can't go in without a valid reason. It has to be an important reason to go in to these areas like Leicester, etc. So there's that. So this is effectively a stealth lockdown. So ignore the bits in the video where I say it's not a lockdown, because it kind of is by stealth. Alright, enjoy the video. So I was just about to edit the video, and next thing you know, the government have put out more weird information which says that councils say travel not prohibited after meeting government officials over local lockdown fears. So what happened was the government said that, people can't go into these areas that have been hit with the Indian variant, such as Bolton, unless you have a valid reason. And now we find out that the councils, the 8 councils affected, have said people are still allowed to travel in and out of the areas listed on the government website, which were interpreted as having stricter measures placed on them. Like, what is going on here? I don't understand. There was confusion after the website changed its guidance over the last few days for people living in the areas worst hit by the Indian variant, with health officials saying they were not consulted or told about the move. The government are all over the place with this, refusing to go into lockdown because they don't want the word lockdown associated with them, because Boris Johnson, famously said there would be no more lockdowns. This is ridiculous. This government are just insane. Anyone who votes for them in the future, they deserve it. They deserve misery, because this is a joke right here, an absolute joke. Enjoy the rest of the video. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the government basically gambling on the vaccine to work mega effectively, and allowing the Indian variant to kind of spread within the country, whilst failing to alert local authorities to the danger that is going on within their areas. This is so embarrassing right here. Government advice has emerged urging people not to travel into and out of areas hardest hit by the coronavirus variant unless necessary. So it's important to say this is guidance, not necessarily the law or anything like that. This isn't a lockdown. So the government kind of want to avoid the term lockdown, because Boris Johnson famously said, there will be no more lockdowns. This is irreversible, blah, blah, blah. So now he's allowed in this new variant of COVID to come to this country, to start spreading around. Indoor dining in these areas is still open as far as I know of. Those are the areas where COVID can spread the most, and nothing has been done about it. The guidance of Kirklees, Bedford, Burnley, Leicester, which is unfortunate because I did want to see my younger brother who goes uni there, Hounslow and North Tyneside, says people in these areas should try to avoid meeting indoors. So this is just guidance, but you can see this is what the government do very weaselly. We told people, you shouldn't be meeting indoors. We want to let people be responsible for their own actions, when we know that that's not how it works, especially in this country. No country has been able to follow this strategy of just allowing people to do it. Sweden tried it, and they've got the highest per capita death rate in their area amongst the Scandinavian countries. It doesn't work. There's a reason why you have hard speed limits and not, you could go 30 miles per hour. Maybe, you only use your common sense. If there's no other cars in the road, maybe you can go a bit faster. There's a reason why we don't do that. This argument, they're trying to, push all responsibility onto the public when the government are responsible for keeping the public safe. There's a reason why we have things like speed lights and speed limits and traffic lights, etc. It's to keep people safe. This is where it gets really annoying. The advice was published on Friday on the government website without an announcement. So the government basically announced put on their website on Friday that you shouldn't be mixing indoors in these areas and blah, blah, blah. No one reads the government website like that. And none of the people, none of the councils or MPs in these areas actually knew about this. None of them. Because they announced it on a Friday. Was it Eurovision over the weekend as well? They literally announced it if they were going to bury bad news. That's the way they've gone about this, and it feels like they have. The advice was published on Friday without an announcement and urges an extra cautious approach. Like, are we in Metal Gear? Honestly, exercise extreme caution. Are you looking for Solid Snake? Are you on the tanker looking for Raiden? This is shocking stuff here. A Downing Street source denied it was a local lockdown by stealth. It's really not, because if indoor dining is open, it's not a local lockdown. Advice travelling to Bolton in Greater Manchester and nearby Blackburn and Darwin, other than for essential reasons. You could literally say anything's for an essential reason, really. And for people there to meet outside where possible was issued on the 14th of May. You can do this if you want. We know that doesn't work. That's why it's one of the main reasons we've had massive COVID spikes, because people don't have that kind of common sense in this country. It doesn't exist. Not many countries have it, because you don't need many people to cause a spike. You don't need many people to breach the rules to cause problems. That's why it has to be enforced. North Tyneside Council said officials did not know about the announcement until Monday. So this thing was announced on Friday that you shouldn't be mixing indoors and blah blah blah. They didn't know until Monday. Blackburn with Darwin's Director of Public Health Dominic Harrison said the affected areas were not consulted with or warned of, notified about or alerted to this guidance. No one knew in this area. A Downing Street source told the BBC the areas were informed about the latest advice. So the Downing Street source doesn't actually have a date. They could have said, "Oh yeah, we told them," but you told them on Monday. Heck, you could have told them today this was happening. This source it doesn't add a date. You can argue that Dominic Harrison's statement also doesn't have a date, but at least he's put his name to this, and it looks like his information checks out. Mr. Zahawi urged leaders to work together and said the government was asking people in the 8 areas to be cautious, to be careful. That's great if you're looking for a solid snake or an intruder in the area. That's not what's happened here. You have the spread of the most contagious variant we've seen so far. It's far worse than the Kent one. This is becoming the dominant strain in the UK. It's not even been here for that long. Matt Hancock used a Downing Street briefing last Wednesday to urge vulnerable people to have their second dose of a vaccine to guard against the new virus variant which was identified in India. So why didn't you tell these areas there was a problem there during your big announcement? Mr. Hancock announced an increase in surge testing in 6 areas where the variant was circulating, but did not outline any specific rules or travel guidance. These people could still travel abroad. They could go to places like Portugal or Spain and start spreading the variant over there. This is so stupid. Yasmin Qureshi, Labour MP from Bolton South East and Shadow International Development Minister, said she had not been informed of any new advice and was gobsmacked by the updated guidance. So there may be people who argue, it's because she's not checking the government website for guidance. The government are meant to announce these things. When we went into lockdown the first time, the government announced it. Boris Johnson announced it. So these people, people don't read government websites generally. People don't read the news generally. How do you expect people within these areas to know that their area is massively impacted? You could say, because we're increasing testing and, rushing, vaccines over there. Well, people are going to see that as, things might be bad, but who cares? That kind of thing. You need to tell people how bad the situation is right now. Also, the fact that the government have buried things like the COVID rates in schools in these areas. It's pretty bad right now. I don't have the figures at hand, but they are really bad. She said it was not clear whether this is advisory or legally obligatory. This is the MP Yasmin Qureshi. This is advisory from what I've seen. It's not legally obligatory. There'll be no punishments if you meet someone indoors in these areas because the government don't want this to be seen as a local lockdown. The India variant is on its way to becoming becoming dominant in the UK, pushing out the Kent variant that caused the deadly winter surge. That's how contagious this new variant is. Government scientists always warned that easing of restrictions would lead to an increase in cases. That's true, but I don't think anyone would have predicted that we'd let the India variant in so quickly. You can see some stories here of skipping birthday celebrations, cancelling trips to see relatives. Among the impacts of the sudden revelation of government advice against non-essential travel to these 8 areas in England, Julie Sutter from Aberdeen booked a hotel in Leicester as part of a planned trip to visit her family, who she hasn't seen since the pandemic began, so over a year. She said she can't believe it. Where's this come from? Where's the notice? She can still go, but the thing is, there's a much higher chance of her catching COVID with the India variant. So she can still go, but it's advised against it. It's not anything. There's nothing legally binding here. Travelodge is non-refundable £50 down the drain on top of other deposits and holiday costs last year, because the government don't plan anything. They are reactive and not proactive. A further 3 deaths within 28 days of a positive test were recorded across the UK. So we are doing well when it comes to deaths. Any death is a tragedy, but in terms of the numbers, it is not as bad as it was before. But these numbers could creep back up. We've seen when cases start increasing, that's when deaths start increasing. About 2 weeks later, there's a lag. It's just ridiculous the government have let it come to this. We hear from Rachel Clark, who is an actual doctor, saying that late on Friday, the Cabinet Office quietly updated its website to say that in Leicester and 6 other areas, people should avoid travelling in and out unless it's essential. That message has only just emerged publicly. This is the way the government get out of it. So, oh, we put it on the website. People should have known about this. People don't read your goddamn website. 8,000 people went to a football match in Leicester on Sunday. Outside the spread is far less, but the thing is you still have to go through certain areas to get to the match. These people could meet in pubs before the game or after the game. So you're creating more events where this new variant could spread very easily. And you didn't have to do this. But the thing is the government are so desperate to avoid a local lockdown that they want to go to these measures. We go to our next next tweet from Rachel Clark again, saying 8 local lockdowns that aren't lockdowns. Advice not to travel, but you can travel. Advice not to mix, but you can mix. Advice to stay home, but you don't have to. A leader who brought you vaccination. Britain 2021. I'm not sure what vaccination means, but we saw a video famously last year that said, "Go to work, don't go to work. Meet people, don't meet people." Like stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do this, but you still can. Like, if it's detrimental that we should not be meeting people and things are this bad, why are you allowing this still to happen? I don't get it, honestly. Go to Kevin Maguire, who works for the Daily Mirror, saying that woeful old mistakes are repeated when public health officials in Blackburn and North Tyneside say they weren't told the government had imposed mixing and travel restrictions in 8 areas. But the thing is, these aren't actual restrictions as far as I know of. This is just guidance, including theirs discussing potentially fatal confusion on GMB in a moment. We're going to go to that interview in a second where the government basically failed to explain their position. Theresa Coffey is one of the worst ones, honestly, top 5 worst Tory ministers. She's heartless. But the simple fact is they made this mistake with the other variants. They've made this mistake when the virus first hit. It's just embarrassing at this point that the government still haven't figured out. They're still trialling software to allow people to self-isolate locally. That's how bad things are, and we know that people who have been infected in areas like Bolton haven't had access to COVID support schemes, access to the funds that are meant to allow them to stay home, which are incredibly low, but it is better than nothing. That's how bad this government have run things. We go to the interview here, and this is just shocking stuff here. Theresa Coffey gets absolutely bodied on GMB.
We had before.
So this is even worse than we'd been told, because we understood this guidance went up last Friday, but you're saying that this guidance has been up even longer. Manchester Evening News reporting public health officials in Bolton had not been informed of it. Why not?
Well, I think that the specific communities were added last Friday in recognition of the extra precautions which we're encouraging people to take if they're at risk of transmitting or receiving this particular variant. So it's just a formalisation of that. I mean, clearly the
formalisation,
and local health have been working together.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It may be a formalisation to you, but it's very important to people who live in these areas who are only just finding out about it today. Why didn't anybody get told? I mean, putting it on a website on a Friday afternoon doesn't help anyone.
Well, I think it's been clear to the local communities that with the extra testing that's been happening there, also the extra efforts trying to get more people to take up the vaccination has had a very focused approach in the communities around the country where we'd seen transmission increasing. So it's important that government sets out aspects of formal guidance, but I think the activity on the ground has been very clear, working in partnership with local councils and communities.
Do you think the public can read your mind or something that, I've got to be super careful now because the India variant's around? It's the fact that you don't tell people. You don't actually tell people what's going on. You hide data. So how do you expect people to know? Especially because if you think people are informed enough to realise what's going on in the area, then you're a bigger fool than I thought, because the simple fact is people don't really pay attention to these things, because if they did, they would see straight through you and your party.
We know that, yes, but my question is, why didn't people in these areas get told? Why did you just get put on the website?
You've effectively announced 8 local lockdowns. We mentioned earlier the fact that you have a very expensive, very effective, you'd hope, a new briefing room where you could have held one of the briefings to announce
That briefing room is not going to be used anymore, so there's that.
That in Bedford, Blackburn with Darwen, Bolton, Burnley, Kirklees, Leicester, Hounslow and North Tyneside,
So just quickly, these areas are kind of spread out. Obviously, this is within Greater Manchester, I believe, but you still got areas kind of further in the south. This should be London, and you've got, I think that's Newcastle up there. North Tyneside, who knows what that is, but you can see multiple areas, and this could spread out very quickly, especially within populated areas.
Cannot travel in and out unless it is essential. Why not announce it?
So these are sensible precautions. I
suppose if you can't travel without a reason, you can't go in without a reason, that is effectively a lockdown, isn't it?
would think all the activity that's happened in those local communities, the extra communications that have been going on the ground about increasing the amount of testing, making it as straightforward as possible for people to get vaccinations, really putting efforts in there, show that the government is particularly concerned about the spread of virus in those communities. This is just about now.
It's just the argument she's making here of, oh, people should guess and, what's going on. People should be able to look outside and say, oh, there's loads of mobile testing going on here. Maybe I shouldn't talk to anyone. But the thing is, like, people, especially people in the UK, they have to be told what to do. They're very, they're just like that, The government have messed it up, and ignore what I've said in the video. I'll add a thing at the start, but this is effectively a lockdown, isn't it? It's effectively a local lockdown. You can't go into the area. It's a local lockdown. So it's just ridiculous. I do feel bad for the lady who lost 50 quid because of the her hotel deposit. That's sad. But that's the nature of this government. They are reactive, and this is a stealth lockdown, people. And it's happening already. What does that tell you? It shows you how incompetent this government are, and I cannot stress that enough. If you continue to vote for this party, they will continue to ruin this country. So it's up to voters to vote them out. Anyways, look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. What's going on? People should be able to look outside and say, oh, there's loads of mobile testing going on here. Maybe I shouldn't talk to anyone. But the thing is, like, people, especially people in the UK, they have to be told what to do. They're very, they're just like that, The government have messed it up, and ignore what I've said in the video. I'll add a thing at the start, but this is effectively a lockdown, isn't it? It's effectively a local lockdown. You can't go into the area. It's a local lockdown. So it's just ridiculous. I do feel bad for the lady who lost 50 quid because of the her hotel deposit. That's sad. But that's the nature of this government. They are reactive, and this is a stealth lockdown, people. And it's happening already. What does that tell you? It shows you how incompetent this government are, and I cannot stress that enough. If you continue to vote for this party, they will continue to ruin this country. So it's up to voters to vote them out. Anyways, look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.